Hey everybody, Lee Speed here. Alright, so I'm finally gonna do this. There was a lot of shit that was going on. I was testing a lot of things with like a couple of decks. I was trying out like Atlanteans. I've been trying to like fix my Madolche deck. I've had to try to fix this deck up because I don't know, it's kind of difficult to do because I'm trying to figure out, well, what am I gonna have the most troubles with at all? And I know this isn't a deck that may be tier 1 or whatever. My Gustos are nowhere close to tier 1 and they probably won't anytime soon, but it's a deck that I've grown fond with ever since I was ever introduced to the archetype, back when it was just Hidden Arsenal 5 and they were just first introduced. But yeah, I'm finally going to do my deck profile of the Gusto Psychic deck. Now, I need to say this first before I actually get to the deck profile. The deck itself was created before Jeff Jones topped YCS Toronto with his Earth Psychic decks. Like basically his Earth Psychic deck ran a card called Grand Soul, the Elemental Lord, which is a fantastic card, which, you know, I mean, I thought the card had potential. And I mean, ever since he ran 3 of this in the deck and he topped with it, it went from like $12 to like, as you see right here, it went up to like $50+ close to that. So it's like, you know, people are just hopping aboard. And the reason I'm not going to use it is because, well, it wouldn't really work. I mean, I'm running wind monsters and I'm running like only a few psychic, like a banished psychics. I'm only running a couple of those. And I mean, I have like what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got like 8. And I mean, if I want to run this guy, it's going to be really slow. And I mean, yes, this is kind of a more defensive-oriented deck, but I feel like this kind of card should be used in more like aggressive decks that can fill the graveyard with Earth monsters really quick. So, I don't know. Anyways, enough about that. Let's get to the actual deck profile. I'm going to skim through the deck real quick, then, you know, explain what things do and stuff like that, and some little combos you can do. Or whatever. Anything that goes along with it, because since it'll be my first deck profile, it may not be perfect, but I'll try to explain my card choices in the few texts that I do run in this deck. So let's begin. 2 Cam, 3 Eagle, 3 Godo, 3 Winda, 1 Reese, 3 Psychic Witches, 2 Wizards, 1 Cleric, 1 Esper Girl, and 1 Psychic Commander. For the spells, we got a Heavy Storm, we got a Dark Hole, Monster Reborn, double Mystical Space Typhoon, Pot of Avarice, double Creature Swap, 3 Emergency Teleports, because now it's at 3. It's amazing to run at 3. It's really broken, and there's a few plays in this deck that I love doing when I have like 2 or 3 teleports in my hand. So yeah, I actually opened really broke with this, with having like 2 or 3 of these in my hand once. So yeah, it's just that amazing. And then for the drafts, Solemn Judgment, Solemn Warning, 2 Torrential Tributes, 2 Fiendish Chains, 2 copies of Liberty at Last, and a Compulse. Now, what's probably going to stand out to you right now is the fact that I'm running this. This is a card that you might not have really seen people use, and fair enough. It might just be an overlooked card. Maybe it's not like that good in every deck. And I'll explain why I run it in a bit. For the extra deck though, I've got 1 Daigusto Eagles, 1 Daigusto Godos, 1 Daigusto Sprees, 1 Armory Arm, 1 Catastor, 1 Magical Android, the Naturia Beast and Barkion, the Psychic Nightmare, the Gaia the Force of Earth, Psychic Life Transfer, Black Rose Dragon, Stardust Dragon, Thought Ruler Archfiend, and Scrat Dragon. So that pretty much rounds up the main deck and extra deck. I'll explain like what the quote-unquote side deck is supposed to be like, or maybe you already have an idea. But anyways, Cam's Serenity of Gusto. She pretty much acts like a mini Pot of Avarice for the Gusto archetype, and you guys already know how powerful Pot of Avarice is for, you know, and people who have pretty much played the game for a while and know about Pot of Avarice in general. So it's a fantastic card. As for the number you should run in a Gusto deck of any kind, you should run it at least 2. You can run 3 if you wish. My pure Gusto deck did run 3, just because I was running a lot more Gustos and Cam was never really a dead draw. So I'm not running as many Gustos. Like, I'm not using the Gustos from Hidden Arsenal 6 in this one, just because I feel like it's more useful in the pure Gusto build because it works better there, I guess. And plus, she has decent attack of 17, and apparently her price. Yeah, I think this card is like going up in price. It kept going up. I got my playset when it was kind of cheap, so it was like I was pretty lucky right there. And I got like one extra one that I'm not using, so that's gonna be like for sale or trade or something like that. Like whenever I get around to doing it, I guess. But anyways, let's keep going. We have 3 Gusto Eagle. We have Godo and then Winda. These 3 monsters pretty much search each other out. Eagle, when destroyed in battle, searches out a level 4 lower Gusto monster from your deck. It has to be a non-tuner. So you can get out Cam from your deck, or you can get Winda. Now, I know you can't summon Reese, but I'll explain why I'm using Reese. Even though some may say she sucks, and I kind of agree. She may suck sometimes, but meh. But being a level 1 Wing Beast tuner is also nice because you can sync with Cam to make like Daigusto Godo's Catastor, Magical Android, whatever level 5 synchro you want. So that's kind of nice too. Godo's really cool because he searches out much like Eagle, but he can just be sent to the field to the graveyard, so cards like Dark Hole, Torrential Tribute, they'll activate his effect. But he will miss timing if the last thing that didn't happen was him going to the graveyard. But if cards that activate at the same time basically resolve, like Sangan and Godo go off, you'll get both effects. It's just that Godo would activate first technically. If you're going to activate its effect, it will go first because of how chains work. So there's always that. And stuff like Soul Taker, if people are going to actually use it against Gustos, I mean, I guess some people can just if they're going for game or something, but meh. We haven't run into that issue as much, and I mean, I know that's kind of a big turnoff for people who want to play Gustos because they can miss timing on things. So anyways, we have the Winda. She searches out your Gusto tuner, so she can pretty much search out your Godo or your Eagle. But she has to be destroyed by battle with an opponent's attacking monster. So you can't go use Creature Swap, give them your Winda, attack, and then you get her effect. That's not how it works, sadly. So, I mean, you know how broken that would kind of be? Because, I mean, you can technically do Creature Swap with Gusto Godo or Eagle. You attack them and you get their effects. Opens up a pretty crazy combo sometimes. Like, you can get... Like, one time, I took an opponent's Blade Armor Ninja with Creature Swap. I gave him an Eagle. I attacked the Eagle, I used the effect to attack twice, then I attacked directly, then I attacked with the Cam I summoned from the deck, then I used her effect to draw another card. So that was a huge plus. These are just some of the nice little combos you can do with cards like Creature Swap, and that's why I'm running 2. And I technically already explained how it would work, so I'll just skim over that. Now, here's the oddball, I guess, the oddball of the deck. The card that like stands out and you're thinking, what the hell, why are you running this? Now, her effect's actually pretty good. I mean, it's kind of like, it's like Creature Swap in the fact that you can pick a monster you have and one of your opponent's monsters and switch them. But what's really good about this is, as opposed to Creature Swap, not only do you get to choose both monsters, you get to choose your Gusto and the opponent's monster. You get to pick both of the targets, and then you switch them around. But what's really good is that you can change the battle position of the monster. So if it's like, if you take like opponent's set Raikou, you can flip it face up in the same turn, which is awesome. Or, if you have game on the map, you could take like an opponent's BLS or something. I've actually done that before. It's fun when you do shit like this, but I don't know. I mean, and she's also good Veiler bait, I guess. But her effect to put the cost to put a card to the bottom of the deck may seem kind of bad, but it's not entirely bad because if you think about it, if you have a Cam in your hand, you don't want her in your hand sometimes because you may not have Gustos in your graveyard. But you can put her to the bottom of the deck where she could be searched out with Eagle or Serene Psychic Witch. So you have a few ways to summon out Cam from your deck, and if she's in your hand, she's not always dead, but she can be dead sometimes. And plus, like with Creature Swap, it opens up a lot of good combos, and if you have something like a Gusto Eagle on the field, if they go effect Veiler on this effect while you have a Gusto Eagle on the field, you could just go Synchro Summon Daigusto's Freeze, or you can make Guy and I, whatever you want, that's level 6. So, and same goes for Godo too, since he's a level 3 tuner, so if you can go Scrap Dragon or Thought Rule Archfiend, little cool things like that. So now for the Banished Psychic cards. The cards that kind of have pretty good synergy with the deck just because of the plays that they open up for you. Serene Psychic Witch is arguably one of the best cards in this deck. Besides, you know, like Cam and stuff like that, because she's like a mini pot of avarice. But what's really good about this is that she can get, well, what she can search out from the deck. She can search out Cam, Winda, Reese, Wizard, even though you probably shouldn't because you won't get this effect when you special summon, Cleric, Esper Girl, or Commander. You can get a lot of targets, or you can get another copy of herself in case you need to get another one to protect yourself or something. But, you know, protecting yourself is good. But, you know, she just has to be destroyed. She can miss timing like Godo, but it doesn't happen as often because a lot of the times we set these monsters face down, so it's not really a huge issue unless, you know, MST Torrential goes on. Because Torrential will destroy the monsters, then the MST in that same chain will resolve, so Godo and Witch will miss their chance to activate their effects since their effects are optional. They're optional and can miss timing. Because there are a few cards that are optional but don't miss timing, but it's depending on how they're worded. Because basically, if this says, if this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard from the field or whatever, you can remove. This technically wouldn't miss timing if it said if, not when. There are some when mandatory effects, but there are some if optional effects. So keep that in mind. You have to look at how the card's worded, and that'll give you the hint that you need. 2 Silent Psychic Wizards. This guy is very awesome. Why? Because he's a 1900 beater. He's level 4. If you normal summon him, you can pretty much remove a psychic monster in your graveyard. Any psychic. So you can remove your Gusto psychic monsters. You can remove your Digusto Synchros like Freeze, or you can remove something like Thought Ruler Archfiend, or Psychic Nightmare, or Life Transfer, Magical Android, whatever you want to remove, that's a psychic. And then when he goes to the graveyard, you special summon that monster. He does not miss timing on it because his effect must activate when he goes from the field to the graveyard. Now, you have to watch out though, because cards like Bottomless are still around. And I guess I could explain why I'm not running Bottomless and maybe if I will use it in the future. But Bottomless will hurt because technically what your opponent can do is when you summon this guy, you can pretty much go, oh, I'm going to normal summon the wizard and I'm going to activate his effect to remove a psychic from my graveyard. Now, once you pick the monster, they can go Bottomless. And when they do that, you're going to lose your wizard as well as the monster you removed permanently unless you have a way to bring them back to the field with like Return from the Different Dimension, or I think the card was Bright Future. I think Bright Future allows you to put banished psychics back to your deck or something like that. No, they return them to the graveyard. So unless you have cards like this that can return them to your graveyard, they're going to be staying gone for a while. So you have to be really careful with this. And that's why I've considered putting back Forbidden Lands in this deck just to stop cards like Bottomless. But anyways, we have the Hush Psychic Cleric. Kind of works like how Wizard works. You toss a card from your hand and then you can remove a psychic from your grave. And then when he goes to the graveyard, you pick one of the monsters that you removed. Now, you wouldn't normally remove more than one unless you have some crazy combos you can run. Like if you're using cards like Bright Future, you can put them back in the graveyard to draw a card. So that's not bad, but you're mainly going to want to use this effect once, and he is another level 3 monster that you can go out to with Teleport or to Synchro Summon. Because if you Synchro Summon with this guy or with the Wizard, you'll get the effects of these guys as well as get the Synchro Summon off. So that's good because they don't actually miss timing. So if you Synchro them off, or if you... Actually, what I've done a couple of times is I've sometimes tributed Cleric after I used his effect. Like if I use Teleport, I then tribute summon Reese. I sometimes do that just so I can get Cleric's effect off. So that's one thing you can do in case you desperately need to get out Reese, but you don't have other ways to do it. It's just one thing you can do. Now, Esper Girl. I was running 2, and I might run 2 again. I mean, it just depends. I mean, the deck's always changing around. But Esper Girl is very cool because when she gets special summon from being removed, you banish the top card of your deck face down, and then when she goes to the graveyard, add it to your hand. So you can move her with Witch. This is mainly what you want to do. You use Witch's effect to remove Esper Girl. Next turn, you special summon the Esper Girl, banish the card face down. And then if you Synchro or if they attack it or they take it out, then you can use her effect to get the banished card in your hand. And since DN's kind of stupid at the moment, for some reason I can see the cards that gets banished face down. I don't know if my opponent can, but if they can, that's kind of lame. Because it's supposed to be face down, no one's supposed to be able to see it, so I don't know. It just happens, I guess. Then Psychic Commander being another level 3 target for Teleport, and since he is a tuner much like Esper Girl, you can actually make the Notorious Synchros, as I mentioned before. well, as I shown in the extra deck, you can make the Notorious Synchros pretty easy. So, and his effect is decent. I mean, early game is pretty decent, but I don't know, I don't use it as much. I don't use him for his effect, really. But he is 1400, which is decent for a level 3 Psychic monster. Now, let's see. We have this stuff over here. You already got this. Creature swap because of the combos you can do. Teleport's just amazing because it actually allows you to make some very explosive plays. Like, if you need to make a Naturia Beast really quick, you can technically do that. Like, if you have a Witch in your graveyard, and then you have, like, Esper Girl on the field, you can go Emergency Teleport, get your Cleric, toss a card, remove the Witch, then sync for Naturia Beast, and then get the Witch back. And then if you have like another teleport, you can get Psychic Commander and then make Barkion in the same turn. So that's just some of the cool things you can do, but I mean the deck doesn't do that as much because it's not like really fast and explosive. I mean it kinda is. But since I'm running Gustos in Psychics, I mean the deck's mainly gonna be kind of defensive until the time arrives to make that kind of play. So you don't want to get super aggressive unless you know like what your opponent's playing, or if you can make Beast and Barkion, because that's usually very good because you can lock your opponent's spells and traps down, so that's really good. Then we have the Solemn. Now Warning, this is an interesting story about Warning. With this card, I've had like the worst luck with this card. Like whenever I used it, I would always draw the second Warning when I have like 2,000 life points or something. I always draw it like if I needed something like Phoenix Chain or Compulse, I draw Solemn Warning when I have like 2,000 life points. I'm like, really? Really? You're gonna give me this now? So, I mean that's kind of me having such horrible luck. But I don't know. Maybe I'll run 2 again. But for now, I'm running 1 and it hasn't really let me down yet. I mean, I'm mainly gonna be using it to stop a fatal play that may just ruin my strategy. So there's some just stuff like that. Trencher just because mass out, wipe, field removal, and you get the effects of these guys when they're ready to activate and stuff like that. And if you have Godo, you get the effect too. So it combos really well because a lot of your monsters get destroyed and then they can summon stuff. So that's nice. Venus Chain, I'm not running Valor because I feel like a Valor isn't as helpful in this deck. One, because if I'm fighting like certain decks, Valor isn't going to really do anything for me. Because I can stop an opponent's BLS, no problem. I can go, okay, I'll effect Veil your BLS or your Chaos Sword so you can't banish my Gusto Godo or something like that. But if I don't get something next turn, they're just going to go at it again. With Phoenix Chain, this stays on the field and they cannot attack me. So if they want to just attack me, I could just go, well, Phoenix Chain, now you don't get to attack me for a round or 2, and maybe by then I'll have an out to your boss monster. But Effect Valor doesn't allow me that same luxury because for a deck like this, it's very defensive and it needs time to get its plays off. Unless you draw nuts and then you just go off, but you have to draw like that or else you're gonna get screwed out. And I guess that's another turn off with this deck. It's really defensive. And in a meta like this, where it's really fast, it might not work as well, but we have a few ways to kind of control the board, and this card kind of helps with that. So I'm going to talk about Liberty at Last. This is a card that I had teched in my Gusto deck. Not in my pure Gusto deck because it wasn't until later on, but I teched this in because when you look at the scheme of this deck, what does this deck like to do mainly? You have recruiters get destroyed in battle or by card effects, and then you special summon monsters from your deck. That's how the deck basically works, and this card is pretty good. I think it's a really underrated card. I don't think it will fit in every deck, but I think it's a good card if you're using certain decks like this one. Because what it does is if one of your monsters gets sent to the graveyard by battle and whatever, you pick 2 face-up monsters on the field and you return them to the deck. Now, I was using this card a lot back when Chaos Dragons were like one of the number 1 deck or whatever, back when they weren't hit. This card was a nice answer to like the Red MD and Light Pulsar loop because it would not only not destroy them, but it puts them to the deck, not the graveyard. So this means they have to either top deck one of those cards again, or oh my god. And of course DN likes to do that. I lost connection. Ha! Fantastic. My internet can sometimes do that. Alright, and we're back. As I was saying, Liberty at Last, very interesting deck. I don't know how good it is. it's gonna be right now, but so far it hasn't let me down yet. It's really good, especially if you want to kind of control the board. Like when you're recruiting with cards like Gusto Eagle, you kind of don't want to attacking your cam or whatever. And sometimes they may have so many monsters that summoning cam isn't exactly that easy to do because they have a bunch of monsters. This card pretty much punishes them for trying to swarm the field. You put 2 of them to the deck, and you can essentially make it so that the monsters that didn't attack go back into the deck. And then when you summon Cam, she'll be unharmed. Then you get the effect of Cam next turn to draw an extra card and put your Gustos back. So I find this nice, and I don't know, people might not even know about this card, or maybe they do from Battle Pack, but this card was actually an ultra rare in one of the Tag Force games. I don't remember which one specifically, but it actually had a different text. It returned monsters to the hand. It was normally said to the deck, but it said to the hand, so it wasn't as good. But I like this card. I mean, if you want to try it out, you can try it out. I mean, I could recommend it if you're running certain decks. I don't recommend it in every deck because not every deck can really combo with this deck. Because if you go effective Eagle to special summon, and then you chain Liberty at last, you put 2 monsters on the field of the deck, and then you get Cam out. And that's just one of the cool little tricks you could do. Finally, we have Compulse because it's Compulse. It bounces a monster to the hand. I'm running 1 of this and then 2 Liberty at last. Both are just get rid of monsters. Get rid of Xyz, Synchros, or Fusions, whatever problematic monsters get on the field. Of course, this is more useful as a chainable card. So I can set it, and then if they go MST, I can just chain it, and then they minus so hard. Or if I have something like Kim and she's going to get bottomless, I can go Compulse, bounce her to my hand, and she's safe. So that's just one thing you can do. Now for the extra deck. Gusto Eagles. You can banish a wind monster from your graveyard to target a face-down card your opponent controls and destroy it. I don't like the cost for this guy because you have to banish a wind monster. Because the point of the Gusto archetype is to return Gustos from your grave to the deck and then do stuff. You're banishing wind monsters. This isn't bad. Like, the effect's decent. Like, you blow up a set card. That's not bad. But you have to do it at your end phase, which is decent, I guess. I mean, I kind of wish you could do it during, like, your main phase, like you could with Gusto Goes, because you can use his effect during the main phase. But, meh. I don't know. He has 2600 attack, so he's a pretty decent beater for a level 7, and he's a Gusto, so, you know, has good synergy as far as, like, you know, him being a psychic means you can bring him back with Wizard, Cleric, or whatever else can bring this kind of stuff back. Gusto Godos, this one I like because you can pretty much put your Gustos back into the deck and blow up a monster your opponent has. Perfect synergy with the deck. Now, I don't synchro summon it into it as much because I want to always have a Gusto monster on the field. That's one important thing you need to know with running this deck. You always want to have a Gusto monster on the field. You always need to have a Gusto monster in your hand just in case stuff happens and you lose all your monsters. You at least have a Gusto monster in reserve. You kind of want to have one in reserve. And, you know, him having 2200 attack is not bad for someone that can blow up a monster and get your recruiting loop going. Gusto's Freeze. Many people, including myself, consider her to be the best card in the Gusto deck. Now, I'd say this is true to an extent because her effects are fantastic, first off. When you synchro summon her, you get a Gusto card back. So, you could get a Gusto spell, trap, or monster. So, you can get cards like Contact with Gusto, you can get Blessings for Gusto, you can get Gusto's Dust, or, you know, you can get any of your Gusto monsters that are in your graveyard. So, I like that. It actually allows you to... It's kind of like a plus, depending on what you have in your hand already. So that's just one cool thing you can do. And what's the best part, of course, the selling point of this card. Your opponent takes all the damage, basically, when any of your Gusto monsters are doing battle. And she herself can't be destroyed in battle. So that's really awesome, because it pretty much means that they can't get rid of her unless they have a card effect. And if they don't, they're going to take a load of damage and maybe get OTK'd in the process. Because you can actually OTK if certain conditions are met, or if the field's set up a certain way, or I don't know, if you use something like Blessings for Gusto, you can pretty much OTK, because once you get your whole loop going, you can play this card to, like if you use Godo, attack with Eagle, attack with Winda, Then use Blessings for Gusto to put Winda and Eagle back into your deck and then summon Goto again and then attack and just keep going. And it's really brutal if you have 3 of these. If you have 3 of these, yeah, if you have 3 of these, it's pretty much game because especially with if monsters have a lot of attack, it's practically game before you even get to the 3rd one. So that's really awesome. And you could bring her out of the grave with Reborn, or what I really like to do is I like to use Cleric or Wizard, because if they struggle to get rid of Freeze the first time, imagine the pain they're going to be feeling when you can just go, alright, I'm just going to use Cleric, use Teleport, toss a card, remove Freeze, and then summon like Barkion, and then bring back Freeze. Your traps are pretty much on lockdown because I can remove 2 cards and negate them. So your real out is either monster effects or spell cards. So, you know, that's just some of the cool things you can do. Armory Arm. I was running the Augusto Falcos, but I found out that I would always have like Cleric and Eagle on the wheel, but I can't sync for Falcos because Cleric is not a Augusto monster, so I can't use this guy as much. I mean, I can go into him with Esper Girl after I use her effect in Winda, so that's not bad. But I think Armory Arm has a bit more utility, and since I'm using Cleric's effect to bring back a Psychic monster, I could bring something back like Thought Real Archfiend, give him 1,000 attack points and do a shit ton of damage and gain life points. So that's one thing you could do, and you know, just being in generic level 4 is nice. Catastor, Android, of course. I already explained these guys. This guy's kind of good because he's he's like a generic psychic target, and you get hand information from your opponent. Like if you call a monster and you see like Gores or something, you can kind of play around the Gores, because since you know that they have Gores in their hand, you can pretty much play around it. And he went up in price. I remember this guy being like $6, $5 or $6. He went up in price, so dang. Psychic's topping really jumped the price up. I mean, I got a lot of this stuff when they were cheap, so it's like I just regret not getting some of the cards because now they're going to be even harder to get. Guy Knight, kind of self-explanatory. Light Trance is decent. This is pretty good because it combos with your Psychic monsters, you know, when they get blown up, you special summon. I'm running Stardust just because, you know, Bottomless and stuff are around, so why not? And it's Stardust Dragon. Enough said. Thought Real Archfiend and Scrap Dragon. I mean, there's not much I can really say about those guys because I think you already know how they work. Now for the side deck, well, this isn't really a side deck, but these are other cards you can run. Like, this is decent. I did run Windar for a time, and it actually worked well with some of the Gusto monsters I run. Like, if I bring back Eagle, I can make Eagles next in my main phase 2. Or if I bring back Goto, I can make Hyper Psychic Blaster. So, you know, there's stuff like that you can do, and he's a 2000 beater, so that's kind of decent. But what sucks, he is level 6, so if you have him in your hand, you have to normal summon him. But, man, if you use stuff like Witch, you could just pretty much... Or if you use Cleric, you could toss him from your hand and remove him so you can bring him back later. So that's one thing you can do. Then Kamui and Falco. You guys have seen... Like, if you watched my other Gusto video, not the Psychic one, but you notice I ran these two. And they're actually pretty good. Falco's is okay. It's not the best Gusto card. His effect's decent. You can summon a Gusto face down. You can summon Kamui face down. You can summon Thunbolt face down. You can summon any Gusto face down. But you're mainly gonna get Kamui Hobo Gusto. You can go Falco, Dark Hole, summon Kamui for next turn. That's decent. And she's a really good card. Not she. He. Why am I keep going to she? That's not right. He has a really good effect to summon a Gusto Tomb from the deck. I think the pure Gusto deck can run this best. Not so much this one. I mean, you could try it, and I might try it later, but I don't think this will work as well as in the pure Gusto deck because there's more Gustos that you can spam, and you have more Gusto cards like Contact with Gusto that works off just using this and like Goto. You can use Contact with Gusto alongside Goto's effect to blow up a monster. So that's pretty good. Musto kind of acts like... I wouldn't say like Effect Veiler, like it negates the effects of an opponent's of any face-up monster until the end phase, and you put a Gusto back, so that's decent, and he's 1800, so that's not bad. Thunbolt is decent. He's another monster that can summon a Gusto from your deck. Well, it doesn't have to be particularly a Gusto, it could just be a Wind Psychic type monster, because there are Wind Psychic type monsters that aren't Gustos, so keep that in mind. You can look those up yourself if you want. Destructotron is a card I do want to try out in the future, because... if I play it right, I think it'd be a clutch, if you will. A clutch that can give me the victory. You blow up a space down spell tracker by paying 1,000. If you have stuff like that gains life points every round, if you have like Android, if you're using Thought Ruler, this card's amazing because you'll just gain life points every round and you can just blow up set cards your opponent's gonna put on the field. Psychic Jumper also acts like a creature swap, much like Reese does. But what's good about this is that you can just pay 1,000 life points. You don't have to put any card in your hand at the bottom of the deck. And it's a tuner, so you could synchro summon using the opponent's monster or something else like that, or you can give him your witch. You could just attack witch and then you get her effect. So that's some really cool stuff you could do with this card. If I run it, I would probably only run one, but I don't know, maybe I'll run more than that, but it just depends. Time Escaper, I like this guy because you can pretty much just discard him and then banish one of your psychic monsters that you control until the next turn. And best part is, it's a quick effect which can be activated during either player's turn. So if they go Dark Hole or something like that, you can activate this effect to remove something like, I don't know, like Thought Ruler Archfiend. Or you can remove like Daigusto's Freeze. Because maybe they're only out to Daigusto's Freeze is Dark Hole, and then if you save her from Dark Hole, you're in a good position basically. I already talked about Falco's, except his effect. All Gustos gain 600 attack when he synchro summon. That's decent. What I'd love to do was go Kamui into Falco, and then summon Cam, sync for Falcos, make Cam like 2300 beater. This be 2000, and then I can use Cam's effect to put the Kamui and the Falco back in the deck to draw a card. That's really good. Psychic Blaster, it's another option you could go into. I did run this guy before. He's very good. Like, maybe not the best synchro, but it's a pretty good. It's good for this deck or any deck that uses Psychics. I'm definitely gonna recommend this. I'd say if you run it in Psychics, I'd say he's a stable, but in this one, I'm not so sure right now. At least for me. I might put him back later, but you know, it's always changing. Psychokinesis, blow up a card when you have a psychic monster on the field and take 1,000. If you can gain life points every round, this is good. It just blows up anything you want. It could be a monster or it could be a back row card. Or just a face-up card. Concept of Gusto allows your recruiter loop to be live again, like more live, and you can blow up a component's card. Really good. And there's another card that's similar to it called Quillpen of Godos. So Quillpen of Godos works the same way, except it puts wind monsters from your grave to the deck, and you pick a card on the field. You shuffle the wind monsters, and then you bounce the other to the hand. So it's like a compulse, so that's kind of nice. And then Miracle Synchro Fusion, kind of like Miracle Fusion, you know, like how heroes use it. In this case, you summon a fusion monster like this guy, or Dragon Knight Draco Equest. I don't know why I said it like that. It sounded epic in my mind at the time. But yeah, I've taken this guy in and out of the deck. Like, sometimes I put him in the extra deck, and sometimes I take him out. So this is a card that you may see me use, and sometimes I take him out. But this guy's really good. Can't be destroyed by card effects, does piercing damage, and when he takes an opponent's monster in battle, you gain life points equal to destroy monsters' attack points in the graveyard. So yeah, that's really awesome. And then I talked about this card. It's really good, especially if you use it with that Daigusto's Freeze. You could do a lot of damage, and you could just, or you could just keep your recruiting loop going. That's also nice too. I've considered running it in the main deck, but I'm not sure. But I could try it. And that's pretty much it, guys. I pretty much explained how the deck works. I don't know how long this was. It took a bit of time, but because this is my first deck profile and my future ones will probably be much shorter. But this is just mainly to explain my thought process when building this kind of deck and what I learned about Gustos in general. And, you know, I can lend my knowledge to people who needed help. I know some people who needed help in kind of building a Gusto deck. Like, if you're going to play Gustos, you want to mainly be very defensive with the deck at first, depending on your variant. On the variant you run. Because, I mean, if you're going to play, like, super aggressive, just play, like, Chaos Dragons or Windups or something. They can just explode first turn, make Shockmaster, and just lock you off the field. So it's like, if you're going to do that, kind of thing, just play Windups or something. This deck's mainly more passive, more defensive. But it can make explosive plays if needed. If you draw into, like, teleports or creature swaps or anything like that, then you can make some pretty awesome, cool combos. And they're not as herpy-derpy as Windows, but meh. I think, in my mind, that's a good thing, because I love having fun with this deck, and I think it's a pretty decent deck. But, I don't know, maybe you guys have suggestions for this deck. Maybe there are some things that I didn't think about running in the deck that I should be running, you know? That's what you know, we all feed off each other. We all lend each other ideas for decks. And maybe you guys can have the chance to do that too. So, I don't know, if you like the deck profile, leave a like, share it with your friends, because maybe they want to build Gusto decks, and maybe they'll get a general idea on like how to build a Gusto deck. But I don't know, I'm not like the best Gusto player, but I think I know quite a bit about the Gusto archetype itself and cards that work in conjunction with them. So, yeah, until next time, this is Lead Speed signing out. Peace.